Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in this particular video, I will be discussing about the design of slab and beam formwork. So this is one of the very important topics from the subject of formwork for concrete structures. So for explaining the complete concept, I have extracted one question which says that the thickness of decking is 20 millimeter. The decking stands for the sheathing material, and sheathing material is basically the material that is in direct contact with the concrete surface. And the concrete slab is 150 mm thick. The live load is given as 3.5 kilonewton per meter square, and the additional impact load is given as 25%. The impact load can be because of some heavy machinery or some construction equipment and so on. The allowable stresses in the decking, that means the allowable stresses in the sheathing material, is directly given to you. The allowable stresses in bending is 12 newton per mm square, that in shear is 0.5 newton per mm square, and the Young's modulus of elasticity for the sheathing material E is given as 10 to the power 4 newton per mm square. Now the dimensions of the joist. The joists are the secondary beams in this formwork, and the dimension of joists are given as 75 millimeter by 100 millimeter. The clear span between two slabs, that is, it is given as 3.5 meter. It is the floor to floor distance, and it will be used to calculate the supported length of the shores. Now the maximum permissible bending stress on timber is given as 8 newton per mm square. The maximum stresses in shear is 0.5 again, and the Young's modulus is 10 to the power 4 newton per mm square. We will consider that the stringers as well as the joists are made of timber. Now the stringers dimensions are given as 100 millimeter by 150 mm. Now the compressive strength parallel to the grain is 11 newton per mm square. This data, the compressive strength is for shores, because shores are the only members in the slab and beam formwork that will be subjected to direct compression. The other members will be subjected to bending compression or bending tension maybe, but the shores will be in direct compression. So the compressive strength parallel to the grain is given, and the compressive strength normal to the grain is also given as 2.75. Young's modulus of elasticity for the material of shores is given as 4000 newton per mm square. Now the permissible deflection in decking is given as 1.6 millimeter. This will be used to check for the criteria of deflection. Now you have to design the slab and beam formwork completely. Now the very first step in the design of slab and beam formwork is the calculation of all the loads that will be borne by the formwork material. So what all loads will be borne by formwork material? It will be the self load of formwork material, also the live load, the dead load of concrete, or the live load of machinery, equipments, men moving around here and there, of the materials, etc, etc. Impact load is also given in the question, so we will also consider impact load, otherwise it would not have been considered. The dead load can be calculated by multiplying the unit weight of concrete with the thickness of the slab. So unit weight of concrete can be assumed as 25 kilonewton per meter cube, and you have to multiply it by the thickness of slab, and it is 150 mm, so 0.15, and it will give you 3.75 kilonewton per meter square. Remember that you could also take it to be 26 kilonewton per meter cube if you consider the unit weight of reinforcement as well. It will be 25 plus 1 equals to 26. It will inculcate the dead weight of the unit weight of the reinforcement itself. The live load is given in the question, it is 3.5 kilonewton per meter square. The impact load, it is said that it is 25% of the live load, so it is calculated to be 0.875. Now the formwork load is the load that is of the dead load of the formwork material. So we are assuming it to be 0.7 kilonewton per meter square. For plywood, it is generally 0.5 kilonewton per meter square, but it is not directed in the question that what is the material of the sheathing. So we can assume it to be greater than 0.5, since we always tend to be on the slightly safer side. So we are assuming it to be 0.7 kilonewton per meter square. Adding up all the loads, the total design load is coming out to be 8.825 kilonewton per meter square. So this is the load that will be coming on the sheathing material. So this load will be used to calculate everything, the dimensions, the spacings, etc, etc for the materials. Now moving on to the second step. The second step is the design of sheathing. So we very well know that from this red color diagram we can see I have represented the sheathing. and the joist as well as the stringers in perpendicular direction to the joist. So the span of the sheathing, how do we consider the span of the sheathing? The span of the sheathing will be equal to the spacing between any two joists. The spacing between the joists will be categorized as the span of the sheathing, since it is dividing the sheathing into several spans. So span of sheathing is equal to the spacing of the joists. Now some data is given. The thickness of the sheathing material is given as 20 millimeter. Sigma B is given as 12 Newton per mm square. This is the maximum permissible stresses in bending. Tau E, that is the maximum permissible stresses in shear, it is given as 0.5 Newton per mm square. Young's modulus of elasticity is given as 10 to the power 4 Newton per mm square. Now see, whether we consider it as continuous, whether we consider it as simply supported, whether we continuous it as 2 span, 3 span, it all depends on the orientation of the joists, orientation of the stringers. See, sheathing is supported by several number of joists. When you see in between, then it will look that it is a continuous type of structure. The loading condition is a kind of continuous loading. But when you look at the end span, then this end span of the sheathing is supported by a wall. Suppose if this wall would have not been present, then it would behave like a cantilever. But now since wall is supporting one end, so it is behaving like a propped cantilever. So basically there are two types of loading conditions. One can be called as a continuous one, second can be called as a propped cantilever one. So continuous will be on a lesser safe side. So we'll be considering the conditions to be propped cantilever, because it will slightly enhance our kind of loading conditions. So we'll consider the propped cantilever case since it is on the lesser safe side. So we'll be conventionally doing this. So but see, the formulas for propped cantilever are kind of complex formulas. So we will be using the formulas for simply supported case, and the propped cantilever, instead of using the formulas for propped cantilever, we are using the formulas for simply supported case. Now we have to check for three conditions every time. We very well know for sheathing we will check for bending moment, for shear force, as well as for deflection. Similarly for stringers, for joists, for shores, not for shores. See, bending equation, we very well know what is the bending equation. Sigma by y equals to m by I. So from this equation, m can be molded as sigma I by y, and I by y can be written as z, section modulus. Now m is WL square by 8 for the simply supported condition from the concepts of Sohm. So it will be equal to sigma b times z. I can be calculated as BD cube by 12, since the material of sheathing is a rectangular one, not a square. The cross section is not square or circular or triangular, it is rectangular. The width of the sheathing is not given in the question, so we can always assume the widths to be equal to 1000 millimeter in every case, in the case of slab, in the case of beams, etc. The depth of the thickness, the depth of the sheathing is equal to the thickness of the sheathing. So it is given in the question to be 20 millimeter. So we can calculate the value of moment of inertia by putting the values of B and D. Now, what is the value of y? For the rectangular case, the value of y is equal to d by 2 and d is 20. So y is calculated as 10 millimeter. Now we can calculate the section modulus. So it will be equal to I by y. So it is coming out to be 66,666 millimeter cube. Now substituting all these values in equation number 1, we can obtain the value of L. Now what is this L? This L is the span of sheathing as per the bending moment condition. If this span will be exceeded by 851, suppose we place the joist at a spacing of 900 millimeter, then our sheathing material will fail in the bending moment criteria. It will fail because of larger bending moment than the allowable one. Now moving on to the shear force criteria, tau is equal to 1.5 V divided by BD from the concepts of Sohm. We very well know this. From this V can be molded as tau BD divided by 1.5. Just remember these values directly because these will be used in every particular case in the coming slides. Now V is equal to shear force. The maximum shear force in the simply supported case is equal to WL by 2, equating it to the V from above part. So now from this we can obtain the value of L as 1510.85 millimeter. That means if we exceed the value of L, that is the span of the sheathing, that is the spacing between any two joists, by 1510, then it will fail in shear as well as it will fail in bending moment, since this L will be greater than 851 as well. Now moving on to the third condition, and that is of the deflection. So for the case of simply supported, the deflection value is 5W L to the power 4 divided by 384 EI. This is the maximum deflection that can occur at any particular section in the simply supported beam. This particular deflection value is at the center of the simply supported beam. So it should be less than equal to 1.6. 1.6. From where this 1.6 came, it came from the last line of the question. The permissible deflection in the decking is given to be 1.6 mm. So by replacing all the values, the value of E is given as 10 to the power 4. The value of I we calculated, the value of W is 8.825 we calculated in the very first step. So the L is coming out to be 551.974 millimeter. That means out of all the L, 851, 1510, 551, you should choose the minimum one so that all other conditions are satisfied. If you will choose 550, that means neither it will fail in deflection, nor in bending moment, nor in shear force. But if you will choose greater than 551, then it may fail in deflection, it may not fail in shear, it may not fail in bending moment. So you have to choose the value that is minimum of all the three criterias so that it fulfills every criteria. Now see, since 551 is difficult to measure on site, so we will go by 550 millimeter, or you can also go by 500 millimeter, since 500 or 550 is a better value and it looks better and it is easy to measure on site. So this length L is the effective length. You will have to calculate the center to center spacing of the joist. Now how do we calculate the center to center spacing? The effective length is the clear length basically. From this diagram you can see how can you calculate the center to center distance. You need to add x by 2 from one side and x by 2 from another side in the effective length to calculate the center to center spacing. Now what is this x? This x is the width of one particular joist. You know what is the width? The width is given as 75 millimeter and the depth is given as 100 millimeter. Always remember, to get better moment of inertia, larger moment of inertia, we always place the larger dimension as depth and smaller dimension as width. So for joist, 75 will be width and 100 will be depth. So, but see, according to the IS codes, the center to center spacing is not calculated like we discussed just now. Instead, you will have to subtract the thickness of the sheathing from this to obtain the actual value of center to center spacing. There is no particular reason to it, since the IS code is recommending this, so we will directly follow the guidelines as per IS code. So by placing the values, you can obtain the value that is the center to center spacing of joist as 605 millimeter. Now since 605 is again difficult to measure on site, so we can be on a slightly safer side and we can round it off to 600 millimeter. Now moving on to the third step, the design of joists. The joists are also called as secondary beams. Now see, we have obtained the center to center spacing of the joist as 600 millimeter. Now we have to calculate that what will be the load that will be borne by one joist. The complete sheathing was borning the weight of 8.825 kilonewton per meter. But what will be the load that will be borne by one joist? So it will borne half of the load from this side and half of the load from this side. So by multiplying the load with 0.3 on this side and 0.3 meter on that side, we will obtain the load on joist. So it will be calculated as 8.825 multiplied by 0.6. So it is coming out to be 5.295 kilonewton per meter. Per meter means per unit length we have calculated this load, since we do not know that what is the length of the sheathing. So what is length of the sheathing? The length of the sheathing will be equal to the length of the joist. We don't know either of these, so we will be considering it to be per meter. Now I can be calculated from the dimensions, Z can be calculated, sigma b is given to you, tau v is given to you, the Young's modulus of elasticity is given to you. So you can again take care of all the three conditions. Bending moment, we have again considered it to be the kind of simply supported case, because the stringers will be supporting this joist and the stringers are supporting it in a kind of simply supported fashion. You can also take into account the propped cantilever case, but again the propped cantilever case we'll using the simply supported formulas. So you can replace the values. WL square by 8 equals to sigma b into Z. We know the value of Z for the joist case. Sigma b is 8. W is calculated as 5.9295. So L can be calculated. Similarly, L can be calculated for shear force, deflection. So out of all the three criterias, we are getting the minimum value of L as 944.28. So we can be on a slightly safer side and we can round it off to be 900 millimeter. Now moving on to the next step, And the next step is the design of stringers. The stringers are also known to be primary beams in the case of slab and beam formwork. So the dimensions of stringers are again given to be 100 by 150. What is this 150? This 150 is the depth of the stringer, since I already told you that the larger dimension is taken as the depth and the smaller dimension is taken as the width for a better moment of inertia. You can also do the reverse, but what will it be useful to you? It will not be useful to you, since you are decreasing the moment of inertia intentionally. When you can increase the moment of inertia with the same kind of material, then why do we go for a lower side? So the load of the stringers can be calculated in a similar fashion by multiplying the total load, that is 8.825, by 0.45 in one direction and 0.45 in another direction. So it is coming out to be 7.9425. So we can calculate the value of moment of inertia. We can calculate the section modulus. Sigma b and tau v are directly given in the question. So for the bending moment case, we are getting the L as 1738. For shear force, we are getting it as 1259. And for deflection, it is 1962. So you will have to go for the minimum of these three, and it is 1259. So we are rounding this value to a safer side. So it will be, the span of stringers will be equal to the spacing of shores. So it is coming out to be 1200 millimeter. Now the final step is the design of shores. Now see, this is one of the sectional view of the complete formwork, in which you can see the slab, then you can see the sheathing material, the 20 millimeter is the sheathing material, then you can see the joist, stringers, and the longitudinal ones is the shores. You have to calculate the supported length of these shores. How can you calculate the supported length? See, you know the floor to floor height. So by subtracting the width of the depth of the concrete slab, the thickness of the sheathing material, the depth of the joist, the depth of the stringers, you can calculate the supported length of the shore. So it is coming out to be 3080 millimeter from this diagram. The value of modulus of elasticity for the shores is known. The value of compressive strength parallel to the grains, normal to the grains, is known to you. Now you have to calculate the slenderness ratio. For calculating the slenderness ratio, you should know that what is the dimension of a shore. But in the question, the dimension of shore is not given. So we can assume it to be 100 by 100 millimeter initially. Now the slenderness ratio is L by B. L is known to you 3.08 meters, and B you have chosen it, assumed it as 0.1. So the slenderness ratio is coming out to be 30.8. Now it is less than equal to 50. Now you have to calculate the value of K8. K8 will be used to judge whether the column should be designed, whether the shore should be designed as a long column, as a short column, or as an intermediate column. So the value of K8 is 0.702 under root E divided by FCP. The value of E is known, the value of FCP is known. You can calculate the value of K8, and it is coming out to be 13.39. Since lambda is coming out to be greater than K8, so all the shores will be designed as long columns. Now you have to use the formula for long columns as FC equals to 0.329 divided by lambda square. The value of E you very well know, the value of lambda you very well know. So FC is coming out to be 1.39 Newton per mm square. This FC is the allowable stress in shores. The permissible load can be calculated by multiplying this permissible stress with the area of one shore. The area of one shore is 100 by 100 millimeter square, and the permissible stress is 1.39. So the permissible load is coming out to be 13.9 kilonewton. What is the actual load on shore? The actual load on shore can be calculated by 8.825 multiplied by 1.2 multiplied by 1.9. Now see this, how this 1.2 and 1.9 is coming out. So from this particular diagram, you can see this diagram shows you the plan of the complete formwork, and you can see the sheathing material over which the joists can be seen and the stringers can be seen. The stringers are placed 900 millimeter center to center, and the joists are placed 600 millimeter center to center. You have calculated the dimensions of shores as 1200 millimeter. So one shore will be shearing half of the 1200 millimeter from one side and half of the 1200 millimeter from one side. So total will be 0.6 plus 0.6, that will be equal to 1.2 meters. In the perpendicular direction, the spacing is 900 millimeter center to center for the stringers as well as for the shores. So half of the 900 millimeter from one side and half of the 900 millimeter from the other side. So for calculating the load shared by one shore, you will have to multiply the total load, that is 8.825, with 1.2 from one side and 1.9 from one side. So the total load is coming out to be 9.531. so which is less than 13.9 kilonewton. So we can say that the load on the shores is less than the permissible load, so the shores are safe in design. But suppose if this 9.531 would have been equal to suppose 14 kilonewton, then our shores would not be safe. In that condition, we will have to increase the dimensions of shores to 100 by 150 or 150 by 150 and so on, and then we will have to perform the last step of our complete design again to make the shores under the permissible load and to make our shores as safe. Now this is the final diagram that is made after writing all the considerable values. The slab values is given, the sheathing values are given, the spacings of shores, the spacing of joists, the spacing of stringers is also mentioned in this, and you can check out this diagram as per all the steps that we have just done in the above diagram. So that's all about the design of slab and beam formwork. Thank you and have a very cheerful day.